Hey y'all, Billy from Perma Pastures Farm. Well, before I get into it, I just want to remind anybody that's interested, we're going to have that Swale class at the end of the month at Camden, Tennessee. You'll see a link for it down below. It's going to be on the 30th and 31st. Hope to see you there. All right, 4th of July. Always a time of reflection for me. I mean, I know there's celebrations and things like that, but I've always been a lifelong autodidact and a person that always studied things I wanted to know more about. Whether it was permaculture, whether it was, I mean, you name it. I mean, like, you know, for example, the harvest behind me. We got a video on that coming up pretty soon, but we got tons of garlic, tons of potatoes, and a lot of wonderful blessings the good Lord has provided us. So no complaints on that front. But 4th of July, always, you know, I come around and I do these videos on basically 4th of July and maybe Thanksgiving. I don't really talk much about the other holidays, basically, because I don't celebrate them. And there's a reason for that. In fact, one person kind of pointed out the other day that, you know, I got to unsubscribe if you don't celebrate this and that. Well, maybe you should hear the conclusion to the matter, like it says in Ecclesiastes. Hear the conclusion of the whole matter before you make up your mind, because frankly, I've never in my life ever heard of a person who was a thinker that began a sentence with, and I quote, "I refuse to believe." Or you don't hear the full extent of the argument before you make your decision. So if you feel like you need to roll on down the road, then, you know, that's your business. But let me get into it. Okay, I'm going to briefly cover what I covered just a little bit last year. Remember, I was telling you about, it was like a man on the street thing where, I can't remember who it was, but they were going up to college valedictorians and asking them about the 4th of July. And some of the answers were absolutely absurd. But there was this one kid who said, oh yeah, it was all about taxation without representation. Now, I briefly covered this last year. And I said he was right, and he wasn't right all at the same time. Because if you do look at that document, the Declaration of Independence, well, let me say it a different way. How many times in your life have you ever made a list of grievances, and the most important things you wanted to express you put either at the beginning of the document, but almost certainly at the end of it? Well, do you know where no taxation without representation falls within that document called the Declaration of Independence? It's number 17. So we're always told that it was no taxation without representation. But yet again, one of those additional data points that I provide from time to time that should make you question all the things you think you know. Because we're told it was taxation without representation, but why would you bury that within the middle of a document? Number 17, like I said. And then if you look at the very beginning of it, you'll see that quartering of troops, which by the way is our third amendment, the quartering of troops was a pretty big deal, and it was covered early on. Look at the end of it. And the very last thing, if I remember correctly, had to do with stirring up the natives, and basically, you know, the natives at that time held no regard for whom they were going to wipe out, men, women, children, and it's actually listed as one of, if I'm correct, it's one of the last things, grievances within that document. But like I said, going back to it, we're told no taxation without representation, but it's right there in the middle. Huh, how about that? So yeah, today, 4th of July is always a reflection, and I always think, and this is going to sound funny because I always wonder what older people, who, particularly the ones in World War II and in other wars in the past, I've always wondered what they must think when they look back at this stuff. And lately there's been a viral video of this 100-year-old Marine, still in his dress blues and the whole 9 yards. Extraordinary guy, I can tell. And has obviously seen pressures and horrors that would crush most people. That's the kind of generation they were back then. Extraordinary people that came out of extraordinary hardship as well. So think about, in the course of that man's life, what he must have seen over 100 years, and he's not done yet. I've always wondered, if I'm 50 years old, which I am, and that man is double my age, and I can't even fathom the decadence and depravity that I've witnessed in the course of my life. I can't imagine what it must be for him. I can't, or the other people like him that have done extraordinary things that, you know, despite my understanding of history regarding World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, I generally don't agree with the accepted narrative of why those wars were fought, because at the end of the day, I agree with General Smedley Butler, who says that all wars are bankers' wars, but that's not the point of this video right now. That guy, that hero, in the course of his life, what he must have seen must be truly astonishing. And then to see it, to see people marching down the streets, begging to get rid of the blood-bought rights that our predecessors fought and died for, is, I can't even imagine what that must feel like for him. When at half his age, I know what it feels like for me. And as a person that studies this sort of thing and has been studying it for a very long time, it's hard to imagine. Last night I was doing a live with Bobby, and go check out his YouTube channel, folks. I guarantee that's going to be off the hook, and it's going to have everything you can imagine. I would imagine, knowing Bobby, it's going to have history, it's going to have humor, it's going to have preparedness, it's going to have all that stuff. But you know, speaking of that video, William got this morning a notification claiming that the subject matter that we discussed, and believe it or not, folks, it has to do with whom we were raising money for. That subject matter is got to be demonetized because it may not be suitable. But somehow on this platform, just like John from Special Operations Equipment have said, sure, it's funny that you can't stop the people that in every single video are dropping links to pornography. But somehow what we were talking about and helping the very unfortunate, because apparently if you even say that now, if you say what we were trying to raise money for, apparently that is enough to get you strikes these days. Which leads me back to the other reason that I talked about last night, why we are going into the podcast realm, because I'm quite sure that in time, it's only a matter of time before, I mean, they've already been throttling this channel back, but it's only a short matter of time before they get rid of it altogether. And you wonder why this flag flies upside down. Now, granted, I understand that these are, well, many of us have been believing that these platforms we're on were commons and that freedom of speech existed there, but we know, and you should know at least by this point, that it doesn't. So explain to me how you can have pornography, but somehow, talking about how we can help the most unfortunate in this world is unacceptable. So, like I said, look for us in some of the podcast platforms, not as a matter, it's more of a matter to exercise that First Amendment, freedom of speech. Which, by the way, there was more than just freedom of speech in that First Amendment. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, the right to assemble peaceably and petition the government. That was the First Amendment, all of the First Amendment. So it consisted basically of 5 things. But I digress. Going back to that Declaration of Independence and why this day is always a day of reflection for me. Yeah, we get out and, we spend some time with family. In the past, I might even go out and blow up some fireworks. I'm not doing any of that this year. What I will do is later on tonight, maybe go watch a fireworks show here in the town I live in. But outside of that, this day will consist of basically me doing the work I love and reflecting. That's what I think we should do. At least what I should do. Now, when I go back and I think about that time of the Declaration of Independence and the time around it, you had a lot going on. And everybody says, well, we fought for this or we fought for that. Well, it was only 3% that actually did it. And we don't even know if it was that many. But it was a tireless and irate minority that brought about the country that we've squandered the freedoms of this day. You even had, back at that time, it wasn't just the people. It wasn't just the rabble-rousers out there like Samuel Adams. One of my favorite quotes is, and he says it so politely. It was amazing how he could tell somebody to go to hell and make them enjoy the trip. Where he says, if I remember correctly, it was like, let our, and I'm going to loosely quote it, but it was basically like, hey, if you ain't on board for what we're about to do, may your countrymen may history forget that you were ever our countrymen. And may your chains sit lightly upon you. I can't imagine a more sublime way of telling somebody hit the road that I don't like you. And I hope in the future to take a few pages out of that book instead of being basically be a lot less lion and a little more fox in my delivery. Hopefully that's what I'm able to do. But even at that time, you had people like that were the overt rabble rousers like Samuel Adams. And then you had other people like the Black Robe Regiment, which, most of us in the United States of amnesia don't remember. It was a clergy that were out there telling these people, hey, this is what's going on. This is why you should stand up. And they had a lot of power in those days. Yeah, they were called the Black Robe Regiment. But where are we now? Do you see any of those pastors? I know of one. That are asking critical questions of the status quo and asking you, is this cool? Is this okay? Isn't what they're promoting flying right in the face of everything you ought to believe as a Christian? Where are they today? Because I don't see them. I haven't seen them. There might be a handful of them out there, but definitely you're not going to find them in these mega churches. No, they're going to be the people that say, oh, just go along to get along. Have your best life now. The same people that likely think the Bill of Rights is the thing the waiter leaves behind when the meal's done. I mean, I guess I have to have a sense of humor in some of this because I look at what was written at that time, how people honored, cherished the intellectuals of that time. But here we are in a place where we castigate intellectuals and we celebrate idiots. It was Eisenhower. I remember, I'm going to loosely quote it also. I remember years ago I worked at this VA hospital. And there was this quote from Eisenhower, and it said something along the lines that history does not long entrust freedom to the weak, stupid, and ignorant. It was something like that. And I saw it every single day when I was at this VA hospital. And like I said, I'm loosely quoting it, but that was generally the gist of it. And I can't help but wonder if he was speaking about this generation. Wow. It's just astonishing to see what we see going on right now, where people are out there marching to do away with these blood-bought rights. Maybe this is why Plato advocated a philosopher king. I mean, he did, after all, see his homeboy Socrates, put to death. Maybe this is why. Maybe we just know that in time, and I know that we know this, that in time, depravity gives way to decadence, and decadence gives way to disaster. And sadly, a lot of us, we don't realize, or maybe we do realize, that when you hit this level of depravity and decadence, I know we're all hoping that some great thing happens and it brings us back to that it centers us. That we go like, for example, like in the Roaring 20s, where you had a chicken in every pot, things were going really well, and then bam. Well, let me also point out there was a great deal of depravity and decadence, nowhere near to the extent that we see now. But you had this, forgive my use of the words, but you had this great reset called the Great Depression. And what did it produce? It produced what some call the greatest generation. Was it? I don't know. I would say there was an argument for that. But it definitely produced some astonishing and extraordinary people. But it took that crucible of really, really hard times to mold those people into what they became. How does that saying go from Victor Hugo? Adversity makes men, prosperity makes monsters. Well, I think we've been pretty prosperous for a very long time. But it took that crucible of really hard times in the Great Depression and all the other ones before then that molded, that took everybody from that stage of depravity and brought them into a point of unbelievable. They had a steeliness about them, and that's what it created. But it took the crucible of really hard times. Now, I know that everybody is on pins and needles regarding the economy and all the things that that seem to be unfolding all at the same time. Not an accident in my view, but they all seem to be happening. And to a certain extent, there's a great many of us, I think, that are dreading what's about to befall this country. Because mathematically, there's no way to reconcile what's going on. I know that these things have to happen to fix the depravity and decadence. There's no way around it. I can't find, as a historian, I cannot find a single place in history where a depraved society has ever corrected itself without calamity. It's always been the universal antidote for depravity. Sadly, I think it's coming, and I think it's unavoidable. But if I'm able somehow to look to the other side of it, I know that this crucible of really hard times, you hear me say that often, I know that that's the only way to bring this about. So look, I know people want to hear a uplifting message on 4th of July. And like I said, for me, I can sit here and give you the rah-rah, way to go, USA, rah-rah-rah-rah-rah. But I can't do that. I can't do it. I don't have it in me to do. I have to tell you the hard, steely truth no matter what. And I guess looking to the bright side of things is that, hey, look on the bright side. On the other side of this thing, there's usually some pretty awesome people that emerge. And I'm hoping that I see all of you on the other side of it, because I'm not sure how much time we have before this sort of thing has to happen. Anyway, y'all, enjoy your day. Enjoy your family. Enjoy your friends. Build those relationships that will survive this sort of thing. And look, there's a great many more things I would love to say. I guess I'll save a lot of this for the podcast realm, because any other thing at this point will likely get me thrown off. So I'm not going to do that right now. I'll save it. I'll wait till I get the other podcast up and running, then I'll drop the hammer. We'll see how it goes. I'm not sure exactly how it will go, because honestly, this channel has been a great blessing for us to meet a great multitude of wonderful people that I didn't even know existed out there. And judging by a lot of the comments we get, I guess a lot of what we do has been a blessing to a lot of you. So we'll try to balance on both ends of this. We'll just have to, I mean, this is new territory for all of us, so we'll have to see where it goes. But as always, y'all, if you need anything from us, we should have comfrey by the end of the week. We have a lot of rain going on, so it looks like we're going to have some of that by the end of the week. So those of you that have been hitting me up about that, it's coming. Bone sauce, world's best deer repellent. It's not a panacea, but it is the best all-natural deer repellent on the planet, in my view. Got that. Got those rice knives. We got a lot of things. And you need anything down below, whether it's an EMP shield. Probably need some of those these days. Freeze dryer, whatever you need. We got it down below. But y'all, enjoy what you have while you have it. And I wish I had a more upbeat message for you, but it's as sober a message that I can honestly, and it's just coming from here. There are no prepared remarks. I'm not reading from a teleprompter. Maybe I was all over the place, but it's what's coming out of me. And it's honest. All right, y'all. Till next time, this is Billy from Perma Pastures Farm, where permaculture is my passion. You know what else is a big passion? Freedom. Let's fight for it. We'll see you next time.